Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for your amazing love and grace to us and for us. Thank you that we can gather and sing and celebrate our risen Savior week in, week out, and day in, day out. We pray, Lord, that as we study your word, that you would speak to us, each one. You know what's going on in each of our lives and where we're at in our walk with you. And we pray that this time would be useful to encourage, to strengthen, to help us grow, to be more like you. Have your way in this place now. In Jesus' name, amen. What have you done that you've never done prior to that moment? Well, that's a lot of things, right? I mean, before you could walk, you had never done it before. Before you rode a bike, you had never done it before. Before you drove a car, before you got married, before you there's all kinds of things that before you did it, you had never done it before. But imagine if someone said, hey, I want to take you up into an airplane, we're going to jump out with a parachute. And you're like, oh, okay, I get that. But now, put yourself 50 years ago in Papua New Guinea, and someone's telling you this. Airplane? Is that those things in the air? And you're trying to explain that you're going to go up into the air and then jump out in the air, and there's going to be this thing that you're holding on to that's going to float you gently down, and they're just be looking at you like, medium rare, or, why? Because they're not getting the picture of what you're talking about. And they have no clue, no frame of reference. And you're like, hey, let's go. We're going to go in this airplane. We're going to jump out. And they're like, no clue. They're just thinking about dinner, which is you. Because that's all they know. Well, that's kind of the situation for Noah. God comes to him one day and says, hey, I want you to build an ark. What's that, God? It's a big boat. What's that, God? And why? Because we're in the middle of the desert. Where there's no ocean nearby. What do we need? We need this big boat. Just trust me. You need to build it, get on it, and you'll be saved. Okay. That's how crazy. As we look back, we go, oh yeah, Noah, what a guy. He believed God. He trusted God. He had faith that works. But think about it. He was being asked to do something that was never done before. And by faith, believe and put his trust in God for it. See, we looked at Abel and faith worshiping, and Enoch, faith walking, and today we look at Noah, that faith works. Because when you have faith, it's going to become evident in what you do, and that's true in the case of Noah. So our verse, chapter 11, Hebrews, verse 7. By faith, Noah, being warned by God concerning events as yet unseen, in reverent fear constructed an ark for the saving of his household. By this he condemned the world and became an heir of the righteousness that comes by faith. Noah. Flood? What? What the author is doing is reflecting back on a real event. And so for that, of course, we're going to need to go back to where it's talking about. Turn back to your finger is, or your bookmark, Genesis chapter 6. If you're having trouble finding Genesis, it's the first book. Should be all right from there. Look for the big 6. And what we're going to see, not only does Hebrews affirm the flood, but then Jesus also affirmed that the flood was real. It's not just some fable and some story. It's a real event. And what we're going to see in Noah is not just that faith works, but faith trusts. So we pick it up, Genesis chapter 6, verse 5. And the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great on the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals, and creeping things, and birds of the heavens. I'm sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. We're going to see that faith trusts. In order to do what God asks of us, we have to trust who God is. And that's where Noah was at. And see, the problem is, though, when we get to a story in the Bible, sometimes we get to these characters of faith, and we start to elevate them as being extraordinary, as far above and beyond anything we could ever do ourselves. Because look at Noah, he built an ark. I could never build an ark. I don't have that kind of faith. And that's not really what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to have the trust in God, not in the person. We're supposed to be like Noah, who only knew a little of God, what he had heard, and trusted what he knew. We know a lot more about God because of his word, and we're supposed to trust what we know. It's like if you're at home and mom's not there and your kids are little and you have like a couch or a bed and you want your kid to stand and jump. Or you're at the playground and, jump to dad, and mom's not around, to freak out. Because the distances get bigger and, when they're small, they're like little squirrels. Wah! They can just fly, and it's a lot of fun. But you just say, hey, I'll catch you. And they believe that you will. You better catch them. Why? Because they're ready to jump. And you throw them up in the air. They're trusting that you're going to catch them. And it's a great experience. Why? Because they're trusting in their dad. That's the kind of trust that we're to have in God. That he's got us, no matter what is going on, no matter the turbulence, no matter what's happening in our lives, that he's got us. That's what Noah did. He valued and trusted God more than anything else or anyone else. See, it says that he walked with God. Well, of course he did. You don't walk with God, and all that implies, we looked at last week, unless you have a relationship with him, unless you're in step with. You agree to go where he goes, to follow what he says, unless you trust that person. It says he was righteous and blameless, and again we make note that that doesn't mean he was perfect. There's only one that's perfect, that's Jesus. And so, not to raise up Noah, because here's what it says in verse 8. Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. You're like, see, of course. Noah, he's the man. God loved him more than everybody else. God was pleased with him. He's awesome. No, take note. The word favor is the word grace. It's gaining approval, kindness, unmerited favor. Oh. I mean, it wasn't about him first. It was about what God did for him. Yeah. Because God loved him unconditionally, because God gave him favor, he was righteous. Because of that, he was blameless and he walked with God. It follows. God does first. We follow. His grace is that big. His grace is that good. Yeah. It says it this way in John 1:12. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. That's grace for us. To believe, to receive, and to become. That's it. It's that simple. We become children of God when we believe, and so we receive that gift. What gift? Well, Ephesians 2:1-9. We're not going to read it. You just take it down. It's the gift of salvation. By grace you have been saved, not of works. It's not, I'm working, so that God says, well done, good job, you're awesome, way to go, come on to heaven. No. He gives us salvation, and then because of that, Ephesians 2:10, we are his workmanship, created for good works. Oh, verse 9 was, by grace you have been saved, not of anything that you do. Then once you're saved, God's got a plan for you. He's got things for you to do. Noah found favor because he got grace from God, and he responded to God. And because of that, he was righteous and blameless. And because of that, he walked with God. The story is told in London. C.S. Lewis was late arriving for a religious symposium because of traffic, and the panel, comprised of the world's most highly esteemed religious thinkers, began without him. The first question being, what is unique about Christianity? Although the Buddhist, the Muslim, the Jew, and the Taoist discussed the question, they could arrive at no conclusive answer. In the midst of their debate, C.S. Lewis burst into the room. Dr. Lewis, said the moderator, tell us what is unique to Christianity. Well, that's easy, Lewis replied. grace. It's grace. Why is it so easy to define? Because in every other religion, it's us trying to get to God and hope that He's pleased with us, hope that we do enough so that He says, yeah, you're awesome, you're going to come into paradise, heaven, whatever the situation may be. But in Christianity, it's God extending to us unmerited favor and kindness that we don't deserve. And then we're on our way to heaven. And so we work out our faith because of what He has done. It's God coming to us. Not us trying to work our way to Him as if we're on some never-ending ladder, and I hope I get high enough so that at the end of the day I go, I made it. So how do you know? That's the problem. You don't know. You're left to wonder, am I going to get there or am I not? I don't know. And so religions come up with all kinds of crazy things to say, to help you guarantee your arrival. Some say if you blow yourself up, hey, you'll be in heaven. That's not a great plan. Others, say if you do this and you work and you've got more on the plus side than the negative side, that's going to get you in. No. It's by grace you are saved. God's unmerited favor to us. What was going on in that day? It says, verse 11, the earth was corrupt in God's sight. The earth was filled with violence. God saw the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with wood. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you are to make it. The length of the ark, 300 cubits, its breadth 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make a roof for the ark and finish it to a cubit above, and set the door of the ark in its side. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. For behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life under heaven. Everything that is on the earth shall die. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you, your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female. Of the birds according to their kinds, of the animals according to their kinds, of every creeping thing of the ground. Yes, those even made it. According to its kind, 2 of every sort shall come in to you to keep them alive. Also, take with you every sort of food that is eaten and store it up. It shall serve as food for you and for them. Noah did this. He did all that God commanded. So it tells us here in this section that back in verse 5, the Lord saw the wickedness of man. He saw that every intention of the thoughts of the heart was only evil, and He regretted what He had done. Regretted? Did He regret making us? No. He doesn't regret creation, because back in Genesis it said everything was good, good, good. Then He created man and woman, and it was very good. But people were left with choice, and we took what was very good, and then the inclination, the thoughts and imaginations of the heart became evil continually. It was corrupt, filled with violence. Paul said it this way in Romans chapter 7, For I know that nothing good dwells in me that is in my flesh. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. In other words, we're all there. We all have within us evil and nothing good. Anything good that is of us or that comes from us is from the Lord. That's His grace to us. The days of Noah, those weren't the happy days. No one was singing the tune. It was wicked, violent. Yeah. John Corson says, in the King James, it says that the imaginations or the thoughts. It says, what are these evil imaginations? He says, you break the word down and you get to the essence of it. Images. Throughout the Old Testament, idols were worshipped in groves of trees which were planted to cover up the shady activities that took place therein. What are the images of our hearts and of our day? Well, we have them. They're the things we put on the wall. And now, well, you can put it in your pocket. And so you can view these images all the time. And how does that help? Well, it leads us down a path of what? Well, if you were to spend time reviewing TV shows and movies and culture and kind of studying it, you'd go, ooh, the inclinations of the heart is what? Oh, it's all happy days again. No, it's wicked. It's evil continually. Even in the cutest little show, you think, oh, that's a nice show. They're nice people. What's the stars? Oh, they two men together? Is that okay? I will. But it's portrayed as, hey, this is normal. This is good. In God's response, one commentator said, a grief over the making of humanity is not remorse in the sense of sorrow over a mistaken creation. This verse, this idea is that God's pain has its source in the perversion of human sin. The making of man is no error. It is what man has made of himself. In other words, the heart is wicked and deceitful. Who can know it, the Bible says. All you have to do is just leave a kid and watch what happens as they grow. Their inclination is to do good? Not so much. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to use that famous two-letter word all the time. No. No, don't do that. No, stop doing that. Stop doing that. No, you can't have that. No, you can't go there. No, you can't do this. Oh, but what? Because their inclination is evil. Yeah, they're so cute, but they're evil. If you don't have kids, you're like, I think it's just cute. Well, just wait. We'll bring some over. You can practice. And maybe you have grandkids, you're like, oh, I'm past that. Well, no, they're still evil. They just get evil when they leave you. Because you sugar them up and send them home. You know. Yeah. Sweet. Until they get home. But that's just a picture of all of us. You know, kids are just freer. And they just let it loose and say and do whatever. We're more restrained, we're more reserved. We can hide behind our masks, and yet the inclinations of our hearts, it's still evil. The desires of our hearts, still not good. And even when we want to do good, Paul said in Romans, we can't. It's this battle that's ongoing. The condition of the world wasn't good. Jesus used the condition of the world at that time, Matthew 24, to talk about when he would come again. Matthew 24:36, concerning that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. As in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. So first Jesus affirms that Noah was a real guy, and that the flood was a real thing, and that this is what happened. Here's how the days were. People just didn't care. They just lived life. They just went about their business, getting married, having kids, doing life. And in the background, you've got this crazy guy over there building this boat. And they'd go visit him. How's it going, Noah? What are you doing? Some people actually, when they flesh out how many people were alive at this time, they come up with some pretty extraordinary numbers. And I'm not a math person, but some of these math stuff, they were saying like 10 trillion people, you know. And that might be a little high, a little exaggeration. But why did they do that? Well, because time period of people's lives. Most people are living 900 years plus. That's a long time. They're having lots of kids. And the condition of the earth was such that it wasn't raining. There was this nice dew. It was perfect climate, perfect food. Everything was wonderful. It was growing, and life was growing and reproducing, and lots of people. But in the midst of all that, and I say that just for a couple of reasons. One, maybe they weren't as backwards as we like to think. I mean, you had that many people for that many years, they're going to figure some stuff out. You know. And the other thing is, that's a lot of people whose hearts have gone hard. That's a lot of people who are far from God, who are just going on with life and doing their own thing. We look at our culture and our country and what we see, well, God's looking, it says in Chronicles, for those whose eyes are on Him. Why? Because all around, people are not. People's hearts and inclination is for evil and for violence, and there's no politician that can fix that. There's only Jesus. So Noah, he trusted God. And it's only by grace. It wasn't anything that he did that he deserved it, that he just believed God and he trusted. It's what Hebrews says in chapter 4, Let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. We get to come near to God. We get to receive from God. Not because we've earned the right, but Jesus has made the way. And so then we get to, with confidence, draw near. Noah heard from God. Noah then was told to do something that he'd never even imagined or comprehended what this was going to look like. This wasn't a weekend trip. This wasn't, at nighttime, see how we can work on the ark, and, weekends where we can get to it, we'll take a few days off. This was a full-time commitment to wholeheartedly go in the direction God gave him. We have problems when it's, a day or a week or a month or a season where things aren't great and it's difficult. Noah persevered for how long? Well, up to 120 years. Some say it's 55 to 75, but 55 to 120. But either way, he was hanging in there a long time. See, when you have faith that works, you're going to work. You're going to do the things that God had asked you to do. It says Noah did all that God commanded. We could call it faith is obedient, but we're saving that for next week because Abraham. So it is, but it just use obedient next week. So today we're saying faith works. Faith works. Because if you have faith, you'll work for the Lord, of the Lord, doing His will. It's James chapter 1. You may have heard it. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. The anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filthiness and rampant wickedness, and receive with meekness the implanted word, which is able to save your souls. So this is the context. Then verse 22. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks intently at his natural face in a mirror. He looks at himself and goes away and at once forgets what he was like. But the one who looks into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and perseveres, being no hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, he will be blessed in his doing. So in this context, James is talking about life and anger and the changes that needed to be made in people and in us. And in light of these things, he says, be a doer of the word. Be a doer? Yeah. Respond to what you know. Respond to what God shows you. That's what we're to do. That's what Noah did. He's given blueprints. Here's how you're going to make the ark. Go for it. Okay. So he did. He didn't get a committee and say, well, let's study this and do an economic feasibility study because this is going to cost a lot. Who's paying for this? Is there some tax money or how are we going to do this? He didn't get a bunch of people and say, what do you think? Is this a real thing? Or is this really God? Was this last night's pizza? He trusted God completely. His faith worked. He believed, and then the evidence is he built an ark, responding to what we know. How do you do that, and why do you do that? Because he knew and understood who God was. See, back in Hebrews chapter 11, it says he in reverent fear constructed. Reverent fear? Yeah, he was moved with a godly fear. He was not shaking in his boots like, if I don't do it, God's going to zap me like a bug. It wasn't that kind of fear. That's not a healthy fear, just in case that's your view of God. Like, you're like tiptoeing around and hope you're doing right and hope, you're on pins and needles because if God sees me doing wrong, He's going to get me, And, the law kind of gives that kind of picture of God. And people who emphasize and throw the law at you and say, hey, look, you're not doing this. There's a heavy weight, there's a condemnation that God is not giving to you. Romans 8 says, there's therefore now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. There's grace. And so godly fear, man, that's a reverence for God. It's a respect for who He is. It's understanding that He's God. He's holy God. He's far above and beyond. He's the creator God, and so He deserves our respect. That's what motivated Noah to move forward. It says he was motivated by godly fear. See, when you understand who God is, it's going to help you live out what God asks of you. Think about your New Year's resolutions that you've already broken. And if you just broke it, that's pretty good. You know, you almost made it half a year. I think statistically they show within a few weeks people break those. Well, why? Well, various reasons. Sometimes it's, you know, lack of intrinsic self-motivation. Sometimes it's outside forces, or you try to set a goal that's too audacious, and you know you can't really. You still take baby steps, and you're trying to take a lead. You know, there's all kinds of possibilities, but maybe it wasn't that higher purpose. It was just you wanting to do something for you, but it wasn't necessarily something God said, "Hey, this would be great for you." Fear of the Lord. Proverbs 1:7 says, is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Want to have some understanding about life and how it works? Have some respect. Have some godly fear. That's going to help you move forward. It says it this way in Deuteronomy, verse 10, chapter 10. What does the Lord your God require of you but to fear the Lord your God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. See, when you have the proper perspective of who he is, he's in charge, he's God, he's sovereign. That means he's over all. When we invite Jesus into our life to be Lord and Savior, we emphasize often the Savior part. And he is. He saves us from sin and from death. But the Lord part is just, if not more importantly. It means he's over all. Over all? Is there like a special Hebrew word? It's all. Everything in our lives, he's over. And so then we respond to him by walking with him, by loving him, and by serving him. Chapter 10, verse 20, you shall fear the Lord your God. You shall serve him and hold fast to him. And by his name you shall swear. He is your praise. He is your God who has done for you these great and terrifying things that your eyes have seen. And this is God through Moses reminding the people of Israel of all the great things God has done for them. It's to build in them hope and faith and an understanding of who he is so that they have the proper perspective. Sometimes in our desire to be not too offensive, or in the desire as believers to not come down hard on people, we're too light on sin. And godly fear says, hey, we serve a holy God. And so he's looking, it says in Chronicles, for those whose eyes are upon him. And when we have our eyes set on the Lord, well, sin is going to become less in our lives. And we'll want that, because we want that closeness to God. We want that walk with him, that relationship with him. It's going to be a faith that works. Noah did all that God commanded, because he had this godly fear. Back when we were on Whidbey Island, I was the assistant pastor, and our pastor was going to be away, and so that meant I got to teach. And that was a rare deal. You know, in the 2.5 years, I think maybe twice I preached on a Sunday, maybe 3 times. I don't know, it was like, come on, I need a turn. And so we had a children's building, and then behind we had built a playground, and it was one of those super duper Costco ones that come in boxes. That was awesome. And we put it all together. It was rocking, and then we were going to get wood chips, and we needed a border to keep the wood chips in the playground and not, all over. So my job was to make that border. And we had all the material, and we were going to make these little boxes and, trench it out. But for me, that week, my priority was the teaching of the Word. And I needed to spend a lot of time in getting ready, because, going back 10, 12 years, I hadn't done it very much. And so I needed to spend a lot of time. And I thought, we'll put that down the list. Even though he said this better be done before I get back, I thought, well, metaphorically speaking, it'll be done. But I'll get to it when I get to it. But it can't be real important because, he wants me to have a good message, right? For sure. I can't go up there and just wing it. And so I did that and didn't get to that. And Sunday went okay, and I think I felt okay about it, and people were, gracious and kind, because it probably stunk. But what happened then when he came back? He didn't ask about Sunday. He asked what happened. What happened to the playground? I said, well, when you're stumbling and you don't do what you're supposed to do, you got reasons. And they're good. You got excuses. and you're creative. And you're like, oh, I couldn't get it because, I had responsibilities. He said, no, this was the number one thing I said to do while I was gone. I said, well, after I prepared the message, I also had a couple of Bible studies. No, I said, get this done. He sent me to go, visit with a pastor. I thought it was a cool thing. It was like a disciplinary thing. He wanted me to learn my lesson, and so I had a little chat with this other pastor. And what did I learn out of all that? Even at a church, you need to do what your boss says. So if you're an employee and your boss says do it this way, guess which way you got to do it? The way your boss tells you. Yeah, but it's better if I do it this way. Yeah, but if the boss says you got to do it this way, you got to do it. You don't take creative license with these things. And, it's very low. Noah did all that God commanded. It's a different level here, obviously. When God says to do something, we don't get to kind of shirk it around. What if Noah decided, those blueprints you gave me, God, they're okay, but I've got my own ideas. Never been in a boat, never seen a boat, but I'm going to wing it. That wouldn't have gone well. What kind of story would we have then? No story. You'd have to start over with nobody? Yeah, everybody would have drowned. But he did all that God commanded. He had a godly fear. Back in Hebrews 11:7 it says, by what? By his constructing an ark, he condemned the world. He condemned? Was he one of those hell and brimstone fire preachers? He was just saying, you're going to burn or you're going to drown. Was he like just telling people, hey, here's the boat, get on board or you're going to die? Well, I'm not sure exactly what he said, but 2 Peter 2:5 said, if he did not spare the ancient world, preserved Noah, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others, when he brought a flood upon the world of the ungodly. What? A herald? He must have said something. He had a lot of time. To what? To warn people, to tell them there's a flood coming, and having to explain what that means. Think about how many times people said, what you doing today, Noah? How's the boat coming? Years go by. Years. We feel like accomplished if we do something for a few weeks. Years. God is saying, this is what you got to do. Here's the plan. And by his life in deed and word, it says he condemned the world. That's still true today. As you live your life for the Lord, people are watching, and it rubs them the wrong way sometimes. If you're living righteously, not because you have righteousness, let's make it clear, it's the righteousness of God that's given to you. You're made right with God because of your faith in God. And then you live your life. People get turned off. Why? Because they assume you're saying this. They look at you as saying that. They wonder, are you going to do this? And what's really happening? They're convicted of sin. They're watching you, and they are angry with you. And maybe you've never even said anything. You're like, what? I didn't say anything. Just by you, you're a Christian. Like, yes, I am. That bugs me. Okay? It happens. And then if you actually talk, he says, Noah was a herald of, he actually spoke forth the truth. That's not going to go well most of the time. Not everyone, when you share the story of how you became a Christian, is going to be like, that's awesome! Can I become a Christian too? That'd be nice. More often it'd be like, oh, that's good for you. I hope it makes you happy. No, it's more than happiness, and you go on and you try to explain it, and they're like, whatever. Don't talk to me about it again. Right? And so you live your life. And just by your existence, you're rubbing them the wrong way. But maybe you're not. That should be a warning. If you're so familiar and they're so okay with your life and lifestyle that there's no change, there's no difference, you got to kind of check and go, okay, God, is there really a relationship here? Or is it just a thing I prayed a prayer one day, but I don't really live a life? Look around you. So for years, he's building this boat. He had a faith that persevered. He didn't persevere for a weekend, for a few months. He persevered for years and years. Because you don't build character in a moment. You can't build a boat in a day. But you can today begin or continue to follow, to work, to walk, and to worship by faith. The last part of verse 7 there in Hebrews, it says that he became an heir of the righteousness that came or that comes by faith. He received something. He became an owner of righteousness. Again, not because of what he did. Ephesians 2:8-9, by grace you have been saved through faith. This not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not of works. He had perseverance, and by that he receives righteousness because of his faith. Because back in Genesis 6, it said he found favor in the eyes of God. He found grace. He couldn't, by his building the ark, gain God's approval. That's not what this was about. Like, build an ark and I'll give you an A+, and I'll let you live. No, build the ark because you trust me and you believe me. That's where the faith is. Because of that faith, he did what he did. Well, so what happens? Well, we know the story. Chapter 7, Noah and his family get on the boat. That's it. Nobody else. Think about how difficult that would have been. You know what's coming, or at least you, by faith, are believing about what's coming, and God has said, now it's time to get on the boat. And then it tells us 7 days they waited with the door shut. There's no rain. Those were a long 7 days. Why? Because they're hoping and praying. People are outside mocking, and, is it stinky in there yet? Have fun with the animals, and, when you coming back? A week. And then the rains came. And the floods rose. There was only one way on the boat. There was only one door. Jesus, in John 10, says he is the door. He holds the key. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, in John 14. The amazing thing about all of this and about that story is it portrays what Christ is going to do and what Christ has done for us. That there is a way of salvation. There is a rescue for our souls and for our lives. But it's only through Jesus. And we shouldn't think that's wrong or say, well, we need to temper that down and, just let people know that there's a bunch of ways and we like the Jesus way. But you can choose your own, that's fine. No, we need to be clear in love that Jesus said, I am the way, the truth. He didn't say I'm one of many ways. He didn't say there's a bunch of truths. And he said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. He said, no one comes to the Father except through me. It's a reminder to us also that God will, once again, deal with sin righteously and justly. That if in the days of Noah life was so bad that he had to deal with it then, well, what's he going to have to do now? When we've aborted how many in such a short time? God will deal righteously and justly with those who are far from him. And it reminds us of our need for his great grace, for his amazing love, and for then our necessity, if you will, our commission, our mission, to live lives that our faith works. That it's not just a faith where we believe something, but we live it out in such a way that people notice, that people go, what's different about you? Why do you live this way? Why when this happens, there's still a peace there? Why? And you're able to share with them that it's not because I've got life figured out. I'm messed up. I'm broken. We sang the song. It says we're all broken, but we share in this together. What? That Jesus saves. That Jesus works in us and works through us by his grace to us. Noah becomes a picture of the Jewish people who will be saved through the tribulation period and protected during that period. You can read in the book of Revelation. And then Enoch, as we look back, he's the representative of the church today that is going to be taken away before the judgment comes. Why? Because our job will be done. We'll have testified as best we can. Until when? Until Jesus returns. As we're going to take communion, it's that remembrance of what Jesus has done, that looking ahead to who and when he will come again. So we close with, by faith it's impossible to please him, verse 6. When you think really about the story of Noah, that's impossible. It's crazy when you really think about it. That the design that God made for the ark was a design that they've later found was a great proportion for boats and ships that they've used in shipbuilding up to today. Oh, maybe God knows something about something. Yeah. It's a reminder that as we have faith in God because of who he is, God then speaks to us and he has plans for us. Ephesians 2:10. He's created us, and it says his workmanship, it's poema, it's his poems, his poetry, he's got things for us to do, particular to us, for us, and through us in this world. We're not just on the boat, on our way to heaven. No, if you're on the boat in that day, they had jobs to do. I mean, you got a lot of animals to feed. You got a lot of stuff to clean. There's always someone that's got to do that. God's got stuff for us to do. And we don't do those things so God gives us a pat on the back, way to go, attaboy, you get into heaven now. No, we do those things because we're already on our way to heaven and we're responding to his grace and love for us. And so we want to be his hands and feet. We want to do all that he has for us in order to reach one more. There is a way to get to heaven, but it's only through Jesus. We have those keys, we have those answers. So let your faith work, not just on Sunday morning, but let it work each and every day as you live your lives, a living light and a shining light for those around you. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you that